been valuing them the same way we've always valued them for the past 20 years. The accounting firms, there's something in this country called GAAP accounting, which is a standard type of accounting. And we account for them the same way we've always accounted for them. If we paid $1,000 for your mortgage last night, when we put it on our books today, we're going to say its value is $1,000. It makes sense. I paid for it what's its value? It's $1,000. That's what I paid for it last night. No. The Congress people said, that's not really a good answer, you know. That doesn't give us confidence that you know what you're doing. Because what happens if you have to sell it tomorrow morning? If something's happened and you have to sell it. Remember, there's kinds of stress tests. Would you be able to value it at what you paid for it the day before? And Wall Street says, that's not the way you can think about this. This is crazy. We always value things at the cost from the day before. And they changed the accounting method, in essence, to say not what it was worth yesterday, but if I have to sell, what would it be worth? That's impossible. So what happens is every bank now has to value something they bought yesterday at lower than they paid. Never before in 20 years did they have to do this. So something they bought at 1,000, on their books was 1,000, is now 990. That starts to, you asked the question about what did I start to think about. Something's 1,000 and 990, this person now has to value it at 980.
When did you first start to get nervous, understanding Bill Clinton in all this? Did you change glasses?
Yes.
Okay.
I changed shirt.
I saw that black.
Are you okay with the?
Yeah, great. I think we're gonna have all kinds of changes.
I'm experimenting.
Yeah.
Okay.
When did you get a feeling? Did you ever anticipate before it happened something like 2008 could happen?
No.
How could that be?
Because it's the word I can beat it to death. Is that it's very much like would I anticipate I'll have a heart attack tomorrow? Unlikely.
Was 2008 a heart attack or a stroke? Debilitating.
It's a better. It was both. But why was it both? Because in fact, as I said, the blood was getting dried up in the system, and the head, which is sort of the central bank, wasn't working. So to some extent, it was a combination. It was a crisis.
Did you see that building up over time?
It's always been lurking in the background. I mean, if you have an older parent, would you say it's possible? Did you anticipate him having a heart attack today? No, you hope things are going to go better and maybe they'll fix it up. The system was getting too complex, and it wasn't based on derivatives, because what people keep forgetting, and as I was just explaining, Wall Street and in many professions, including Wall Street makes it sound complicated. They don't want the little guy to understand what they do, because they make so much money and they don't do very much. So they couch it in words like derivative and stock options and commodity futures and different types of contracts. It's all everyone is capable of understanding it. It is not complicated. But Wall Street, because they make so much money from doing fairly simple things, needs to make it more complicated than it really is.
We had a very big recession in the early 90s based upon real estate and Japan basically imploding.
Let's again,
okay.
You had a recession in the 90s. I don't know what it's based upon. It's always interesting to look back and say, separate from there's certain triggers, like in the 70s there was a...
What do you think it was based upon, the 90s downturn? It's clearly there was a huge downturn.
No, I know there was a downturn. That's what I know for sure.
That's a fact.
Everything else is sort of speculation about why did he have that?
I understand that, but there's some speculation that has 0% probability of being true, and there's others that have 90%. In the range, when you look at the range of alternatives of what could have caused it in 90, and what I'm trying to do is get you all the way up to 2008. Look, you're the smartest guy in the room, right? You know that. Do you think there's anybody in the world today?
Oops, this is going to be a bad question.
No, but do you think anybody in the world today, the Alan Greenspans, the Bernankes, is there any central banker you know, any partner of any Wall Street firm, any guy running a trading desk, and I would take it that would be, or anybody at a Larry Fink at BlackRock, Steve Schwartzman at Blackstone, the top 100 financial guys, and let's throw in a couple of Nobel economists, and let's throw in the best professors at Wharton, at Harvard, at Stanford. Do you think that there's anybody that understands money or understands the world's financial system as good as you?
There must be.
But it doesn't come to the top of the head.
No.
Okay, fine. Now
Is
that
that
now that I've gotten that, let's go back to 1990. In that arc from the fall of the Berlin Wall to 2008.
Good.
We started with the implosion in Tokyo of the Japanese economy, Japanese financial markets. We had the huge run-up in internet stocks, right? We had the implosion of that in 2000. The bankruptcy of Drexel Burnham in 90. Implosion of Japan, huge run-up in equity markets for the internet, implosion of the internet in 2000, 10 years later roughly. And then this run-up through the Iraq War and all that, the run-up to 2008. Every 10 years, it seems like, we're in some sort of 10 years before the 1990s was the 70s.
You sound like an astrologer.
Okay.
And not a finance person.
I'm not a mathematician. It just seems to me a pattern of every 10 years.
That's misleading. That's exactly right.
Okay.
Because people like to see patterns. People like to see patterns where there are none.
So a pattern of a financial crisis every 10 years is just in my mind.
Yes.
Long-term capital, that had to be bailed out back in the late 90s when everybody panicked. And that wasn't that bailout today would look small, and it was a $5 billion or was $30 billion.
Businesses fail all the time.
But long-term capital, and the Federal Reserve stepped in.
But I'm saying people go bad. Things go bad all the time.
Yes, you're correct. The audience that's watching this, the little guys, they go bankrupt all the time and nobody gives a shit. You know why? They're a little guy. But when long-term capital management goes bankrupt, or Bear Stearns goes bankrupt, or Lehman Brothers goes bankrupt, people care because
it's an unfair characterization.
Why do you say that?
Because again, it's the complexity of the situation. If you think about you have a complex system. You have your body. Now, in fact, the little guy is my finger. This is.
And Bear Stearns is your heart.
That's correct. The banking system is my heart. The system, I can't risk my because remember, it's not only my.
You haven't been able to name.
Hang on.
You haven't.
Hang on.
No, hang on.
I was trying to hang. I wanted to see if the hang on worked.
No. You haven't been able. You're not good enough yet. You're like junior wizard trying to do it. You haven't.
Yes.
I'll say, since we can't name another guy that's as good as you. Now, there may be a couple out there. You're not bragging. You're humble. It had to be sometime. Please tell me there was some time before you went to jail and basically got cut off from daily information in the summer of 2008, that you started to get very nervous that this complex system, that something was deeply wrong.
Okay, first, let's go back. When I say no one understands the system better than I do, it doesn't mean I
You always
understand.
sound like a doctor. You're afraid he's going to get sued for giving a thing.
Yes,
You're not taking on any liability. There's no contingent liability here for your answers.
No. But the word understand is the problem.
Okay.
I don't understand the system. So I don't understand the financial
Will you
system.
please stop? You cannot sit here and tell me.
No.
What we just went through, I'll go through again. The hedge fund managers, the money managers, the central bankers, the commercial bankers, the heads of the investment banks, the heads of all the trading desks, the top economists, and I'll throw in the business school lecturers at Stanford. Of all the top 200, 250, you can't name at the top of your head the guys are at least at your level. You have to understand it somewhat.
No. Sorry. We all don't understand it. No one understands it. It's a miracle. That's part of the problem. It's impossible to understand. That word understand simply means if this happens here, that will happen there. It's predictable. Understanding means it's predictable. It's not predictable. That's the problem. It's very, in complex systems, that was the fascination. Is there a way to tease out some level of predictability?
So even
No, in
the
fact,
spring-
you would ask the question, it's a great question, which was it a stroke or a heart attack? Now, most people don't know that before they were going to have a stroke, they had a stroke. They just have a stroke. Do they understand why? In hindsight, you go back and you can make lots of explanations that might sound good. And if you're talking to the working man, you're using language that he'll never understand. It's complex. So he, just like going to his doctor, he says he has a gastrointestinal problem, or he has diverticulitis, as opposed to saying, you had a stomach ache, you ate bad food. People don't like to say it in normal, everyman terms. The system had a stroke, and we don't know why.
But you just, okay. Hardworking people, and there's a great social benefit, would you not agree, with having people having ownership in the system?
When you say ownership in the system, it doesn't mean.
Let's start over.
Okay.
So flip
Sorry.
over your phone too, because
Yes.
I don't want anyone to see
Yes.
on your phone. So maybe flip it down or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, who knows what the fuck comes up with that phone?
That's correct.
We don't want to send you.
KSA.
I can't not believe I've got the magic moment when you're in fucking prison or jail, wherever the fuck it is,
It's
in
crazy.
solitary.
Now, there's a funny part to that we missed, which is
So
said.
go ahead, tell it.
The funny part is what you asked me.
Is there anything funnier than that?
No,
For
no.
black humor, it's
I don't make any black comments. Sorry. You asked me what I was wearing.
That's right. You're too wrapped up in the Me Too movement.
Yes. So I was wearing a brown jumper and a brown pair of pants given to me by the jail with the word trustee on the back.
Because you had qualified to be a trustee?
Well, the funny part was it was spelled Trusty. So I wasn't really sure. I'd been a trustee in many different operations, but it was the first time it was actually printed on my back and spelled incorrectly.
Probably had a higher level of being a trustee at that than you had at all the boards that you were trustees, right?
Yes, right, because the trustee meant you get two devices to clean your toilet as opposed to one.
Yeah, but it also meant that you had some sort of personal fiduciary own responsibility for oneself, right?
In the jail? You mean?
Well, that's what being a trustee is. That's where they give you two.
Yes, you get two cleaners. I was a trustee in the jail because I was able to teach some of the kids to help them get their GED. So that's how they gave me a trustee job.
There's no time. I got to go back to this because I'm like a dog with a bone in this thing.
Yes.
You can't. There's something deeply fucked up with you.
At least something.
Well, we know there are things deeply fucked up with this. You will get through in this film,
Right.
but you cannot possibly sit there knowing that you came from nowhere, knowing that you went to the very top of what is considered outside of science and maybe physics, the thing people most admire because it's like alchemy, understanding high finance. To sit there in what will be the defining financial crisis of our time, like Black Friday or Black
Yes.
Monday, whatever it was, in the Great Depression, and be there at that exact moment, triggered in part by a firm that you used to be a partner in and knew intimately well, and it created much of your initial net worth because of, and know that you couldn't, someone who lives on a phone, right?
Yes.
Because you do live on a phone, right?
Correct.
You had to make just two collect calls. You cannot tell me sometime during that day you did not have that conversation with yourself of how the fuck did I do this to myself to put myself in West Palm Beach in a 6x9 cell with a metal fucking bed with a brown shirt that said trustee spelled wrong.
So did I find it amazing that I was there? That's a
Not
better-
amazing, and I don't want to say it was not funny. Oh, I thought it was.
I wasn't funny.
Right.
But
Not amazing.
no, it was incredible.
Incredible in what way?
The
Incredible, like how do I do this to myself?
No. It's as incredible as me sitting here in this house. They're both just two sides of the coin. That's how I think about it. That my life today is incredible.
Do you consider yourself a stoic?
No. I consider myself a hermit. Stoics are not very happy.
Being a hermit then, being in that 6x9 cell, being in the cell qua the cell was not the problem, right?
Correct.
What was the problem?
The eating the almond joy bars.
Because you couldn't eat the food.
No, right. But remember, my life is.
Did that ever strike you that I can't eat the food because somebody might have done something to it? I gotta live off an almond joy bar, one a day or two a day or whatever. How many ever sneak in a day?
No sneaking in.
Your one almond joy bar, it did not hit you at some time? How the fuck did I do this?
No.
Let's go back to the spring of 2008. Were you so wrapped up in your personal issues at the time you were not spending enough time on the financial markets, or were you deeply involved in the financial markets like you normally were?
No, I was involved.
So we're saying that the smartest guy in the room didn't see it coming.
No, of course
The
not.
bankruptcy of Bear Stearns, you just thought was a Bear Stearns problem. You didn't see it as systemic.
I know you keep harping on it, but it's not.
Because you're a mathematician and understands systems.
It
seems that anybody that understands that they had a systemic problem, you would at least be the first on the early search radar. If you're not going to see it, then I'm really afraid, because that means that I always assume there's at least a set of guys out there that have some sort of sense that something's not right.
Imagine the guy who has a stroke or had the heart attack. When you ask him, did you feel funny the day before? He's going to tell you, yeah, I didn't feel right. Something was off. I didn't feel right. I had my stomach was right. I felt a little dizzy. I felt a little weak. But if you asked him that day before, do you think you're going to have a heart attack tomorrow? He'd say, no, I just feel a little weak. I'm a little dizzy. My stomach hurts. So these systems, and that's the issue of complexity. What complexity says is that, in fact, everything seems to go along, and people have seen it. One of the great examples of complex systems is sand dunes. In fact, the sand keeps building up. People have seen some, and all of a sudden, one more sand drop, and all the sand starts running down the hills. That's the way I see the financial markets.
When you funded Santa Fe in the early 90s or late 80s?
I believe it was early 90s. I can get back to you.
But early 90s, Santa Fe was funded for the study of complexity theory.
It was math. So let's back up. So why did I buy a ranch in New Mexico in 1993? So that gives you some sense. So I would have funded it in 1990. Los Alamos, which was the high energy lab up in New Mexico, was losing all its scientists.
And Los Alamos, it was where Oppenheimer and where a lot of the nuclear weapons program, the bomb.
That's where the Manhattan Project.
Manhattan Project was
Yes,
as Los Alamos, and you bought your property out in New Mexico to be near that?
Yes, because the scientists were they cut the funding for high energy physics. But the people who worked in Los Alamos would still be in the Santa Fe area.
They cut that because this was the Cold War dividend, right?
I don't remember exactly why. It was because, again, people thought that physics and high energy physics really wasn't that important.
Because that was about nuclear weapons.
No, it was because they decided, which may be not right. This was the same time that Murray Gell-Mann came up with the term quark, Q-U-A-R-K. He picked it out of an old poem, the word quark. But it was mysterious. So they were starting to understand in the 90s that in our world of the physics world, there was things that were just unexplainable. They called it strange things. You gave it a name. You gave it some characteristics. You called it had charm, was one of the terms. It had a charm. It had a flavor. It had a color. But no one, Mr. Bannon, understood what it was. Just like the financial system.
And you wanted to investigate that?
I wanted to see if we could build tools so others smarter than me could help investigate it.
And that was the beginning of your concept of the Santa Fe Institute?
Yes.
And Santa Fe Institute was founded to do study in this type of...
Can these areas of strange things be described by some form of mathematics?
So that's what I'm trying to get at. The foundational thought, the organizing principle of Santa Fe
Yes.
in the high physics lab at Los Alamos,
Right.
which had been the headquarters of Manhattan and the Trinity Project, right, the bomb.
Yes.
So you're talking about the elite, the high priest
Of physics.
of physics.
Yes, sir.
Which high priest of physics, some subset of that is also mathematics. It's math.
Yes, they're both similar.
Project out. One of the tools you want to do is to make sure that in this complex system, the finance system, I'm doing a lot of this for philanthropy and a lot for the good of mankind, but also to be able to understand this complex system, the most complex outside of maybe our body, of the financial world.
Yes.
Did they create tools, or were you smarter in than the mid-aughts, 15 years later, than you had been then because of work that was done at Santa Fe?
No. It was great. But in fact, most of the money, most of my philanthropy in the area of can you describe things that appear to be unexplainable by mathematics, and can you fund people who have new ideas? And unfortunately, when someone thinks they've been able to, there was a man, Stuart Kaufman, when they think that, okay, I figured out how to be able to predict the unpredictable, what appears to other people to be unpredictable. But my system, in those days it was called genetic algorithms, can predict what things will happen, and they all want to make money. So they use their systems to try to figure out, they know they have figured out the way to make money because they figured out the unexplainable. They try, they go bankrupt, and we start again. So with a cold view, what I've come to realize is that the attempt to mathematize, formularize, or what in your prior work, to understand what really is, in today's world, still unexplainable, is impossible. They're miracles.
Your first head of Santa Fe was Christopher
Langdon, I think.
Langdon from
But
Australia.
Murray Gell-Mann was
Murray
really
Gelman
was
was
the
the-
funder.
he
He was the
Yes,
rock.
Yes, he was the rock. He was a Nobel Prize winner?
Yes.
Yes, and a wonderful guy. He came out and helped us with the Biosphere 2 project. He came with Chris Langdon.
Yeah.
Chris Langdon was the operator, the day-to-day guy.
Chris was doing artificial life.
Right.
Murray tried to lead his own artificial life.
Yes. When Chris came to Biosphere 2 for the first big conference we had in 1994, he was one of the most impressive guys there among all the world's elite. Kew Gardens, the Lawrence Livermore lab, the labs at Sandia, all the major universities, Lamont Doherty, all the big Earth observatories, Woods Hole. What set Langdon apart, I thought, and the reason I invited Santa Fe to be part of it, was Langdon actually made a presentation that everything, and he was making this to scientists, a lot of marine biologists, a lot of people that are just beginning, Wally Broker and people who were just beginning the study of climate change, at that time called global warming. That he made this compelling presentation that everything's really mathematics.
Yes.
It's all just back to math. And you have to, all these experiments you do, you're not, one of the reasons they're not considered by the high priest in physics as being real experiments is that they don't have a mathematical basis to it, and everything has a mathematical basis to it. Langdon seemed like a radical visionary. What happened to that concept?
You go back 350 years. So you have Isaac Newton, you have Leibniz. From move forward, you have people like Heisenberg and Gödel, and what every one of those mathematicians and philosophers came to understand is that there's something there's numbers can describe certain things, approximate certain things. But in fact, trying to put measurements and numbers on other things that are really unexplainable is folly. So 300 years ago, they said that unexplainable realm was God. And people who attempted, in fact, to explain the unexplainable, who said, yes, I understand the unexplainable, were charlatans, they were the occults, they were the astrologers, they were the con men.
Alchemist.
Yes. Well, no, alchemist was, in fact, they believed that there was a way to transmute one metal into another. In fact, they always wanted to see if they can create gold. There's no reason, if you think about it, they recognized that one metal is different than another metal because it has some additional pieces to it. It has additional neutrons or protons or electrons. So because they thought it was a machine, they believed it was a machine, if I can take 5 protons and add 5, that gives me 10, I should be able to get gold. Move everything around inside these systems, the molecules transmute one molecule into another, and if this molecule I've transmuted it into is gold, I'm a rich man. It's back to money. But there's something strange happens. Isaac Newton says, this is really weird. If I want to push a ball on the table, I have to touch it. Maybe I have to blow on it. But I actually have to push one side of the ball or the book to move that side. I'm pushing here, and obviously this thing is what appears to us humans to be solid, so it moves as one thing. But the only way to get something to move was to touch it or put a force against it. Okay, seems to make sense. Everybody has that experience. I want to lift a glass, I lift it. If I want to push a ball, I push it. If I want to pull a ball, I pull it. But he recognized when the ball fell off the table, it went in a different direction. How's that possible? Nobody pushed the ball down. And he says, this is crazy. Why did the ball go down? I didn't push it. I just let it go. So someone's pushing the ball, because I know that I am confident that the only thing that gets something to move is with a force that pushes. So there's a force that's pushing the ball down. In fact, he called it gravity. He measured how fast it was pulled, but never was able to explain why it happened. How is it? What is gravity? It's this. Everybody says, well, why did the ball fall to the ground? Because gravity took it. But what's gravity? That's, as Feynman would say, that's the name of the thing. We have no idea what it is. This goes to Santa Fe. They were trying to explain the unexplainable. Can we measure? Can we figure out a way to predict the stock markets using these types of chaos complexity?
Before we get there, let's walk back through it. Let's go back to Newton.
Sure.
Pre-Newton and then Newton. What did Newton solve that for millennia up to Newton had not been solved? And then I want to go forward all the way to Santa Fe, what they were trying to solve. Let's start with just 2 or 3 of the basic guys, but let's go with Newton. What pre-Newton, it was what? And then why is Newton such a
genius?
In such a in the, I think mathematically they told me one time, I've seen there's been 115 billion people roughly that have lived on the earth. And of that 115 billion, Newton.
Are you sure that's a number? That sounds a lot very high. We only have 7 now.
I think in the history of the earth, I think I'll pull up the stat for you, but I think it's 115 billion people they figured.
That probably is inflation. That's why you
have lived on Earth. But he's one of the handful of the most important. What did he solve for? Why is he so important for how we live today? And then we want to go through Leibniz and the other 2 or 3 other major ones to get us to Santa Fe.
Well, it's a long journey.
This is the heart of what we're trying to do.
Let me take a bit of a detour just a second. What if you went to high school and the last year in your high school you took calculus? So Isaac Newton sort of invents calculus. Well, that sounds invents, mathematicians.
To torture seniors in high school before they graduate.
Yes, but obviously no. Yes, the answer is yes. Certain people could never do calculus.
Why is that? Why is calculus so? Why is that the dividing line between, to me, people who can handle that and can go on to do certain things, and people just hit the wall, even if they know math? It seems to me that there's that calculus is the thing that changes. It bridges. That's because it's about the theory of change and the theory of how things change.
It's a great question. But in fact, what calculus does is it's somewhat philosophical. That's why mathematics is Newton wasn't a mathematician, he was called a geometer. That's what they used to call themselves. They understood geometry and numbers. But there's an old conundrum where it says, and during Pythagoras' days, Zeno's paradox it's called, where they said, well, if the wall is 2 feet away from me, and I take one step that's halfway to the wall, that'll be 1 foot away, and if I take another step that's half again, that'll be half a foot away, and then a quarter of a foot, I could walk forever but never touch the wall. Doesn't sound realistic, doesn't make any sense in our real lives of the physical. But what Newton understood is many problems were like that. Many things approached the wall, or in calculus, approached the limit, but never really reached it. So he said, it's okay, you don't have to reach it. We can do lots of the mathematics as if it was so close, it was almost there. And we could do lots of mathematics almost being at the limit. And this is really important, Steve, for today. Because most of the science up until today was things that are starting to approach the limit. You were taught in high school that if you had 1 divided by 0, if you remember your high school algebra, you were told, what's the answer to that? Is there an answer to 1 divided by 0? No, if you were in high school, it's like, stay away from it. It's the boogeyman. You could write it down as it's undefined. It's not able to be determined. There's a bunch of things. But in fact, 1 divided by 0 is a strange things happen. It's a world of the strange. And what I'll explain to you after is that when you get 1 divided by 0, you get into a world we don't know what happens. The answer is it's not explainable. We can call it things like undetermined. We can have a convention to say it's X, Y, or Z. But in real life, we don't know what happens when you are actually at the limit. So Newton thought the same concept is that the limits were God. You got close to God, but you can never be God. He had this sort of religious interpretation.
Okay, I want to go back to Newton. Why is Newton such a big dividing line in mankind's history? What is it about Newton? What is it about what he's trying to solve? What did they not know beforehand? And because we live to a degree in a Newtonian universe, although I realized later subparticle atomic physics, but at least for a while it was Newtonian. So what's the dividing line? Why is he so important? Why is he an inflection point in mankind's movement from the swamp to the stars?
It's a great question. The stars were by Kepler. What Newton starts to allow us to do is to make accurate predictions. Remember that we've talked about that with money, about the things in our physical world, how cars, he didn't have cars then, how horse carriages moved, how bowling balls moved, how pool cues and pool table balls.
Had people tried to solve that before Newton? Had
Many,
people
many.
tried it? Heraclitus or Plotinus, Pythagoras, had these greats that we hear about, had they tried to solve the same problem?
Not the same problem. They try to, again, what Pythagoras does, he starts to figure out this relationships in triangles. For example, everyone knows the a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared, that Pythagorean theorem, which basically says these shapes in a triangle, each side of the triangle has a fixed relationship with the other 2 sides. That's strange. He knew, again, but it was all numbers. This was a system of things in the physical world, and Pythagoras says we can start putting numbers on things that help you predict how they will behave. You can add 2 triangles and make a square, some different shapes. They were looking at geometric forms. Newton says, well, I want to know how planets move. I want to know how things around me move. Can we find formulas? Can I find formulas that explain what I see in the physical world, how physical things interact and how they describe one another? Again, the fact that 2 solid masses, for some very strange, unknown reason, unknown today, attract one another, no matter what they are. People have seen the experiment. You hang something, 2 little metal balls from a string, and they move towards each other. In fact, they move towards each other was very specific. So when you drop the ball to the floor of this room, Newton says, in fact, the room came up a bit to meet the ball. The room moved. It's imperceptible. You can't really perceive that motion, but they attracted each other with certain ratios. So he started to be able to measure things in the physical world. And that was great advances. It also, now you wanted to move very quickly. Unfortunately, most people, especially in the 20th century, 19th century, said, well, like Newton, let's measure everything. Let's measure people's behavior. Let's measure their psychology. Let's measure their health. You go to we can have my blood test. Let's measure everything. We measure Wall Street.
Their voting habits.
Measure, measure, measure. Can we put a number on how much I care for my wife? Can I put a number on how I feel? And we tried, unfortunately, we try to mathematize the finer things in life, and then recognize that there's things that, unfortunately, just fall outside. Schrodinger wrote a very famous book about what is life. He was trying to figure out a way, can he describe the difference formulaically between things that are alive and things that are dead? The answer is no. The things that are alive in my world are miracles, not magic. Magic has a bad connotation, trying to hide things.
You don't believe in the spirit or the soul? That's what animates people, is your spirit or your soul. That's
No.
Have you ever seen someone die? When they die, their spirit leaves.
Their soul leaves, no question. So in
There's
fact,
no question to you about
no
that.
question.
There's no question to you that there is some animating life force within us that leaves when you're dead.
Yes, in fact, I refer to the soul. There's obviously a certain the questions in the past, even
Because
during
people would normally think you were soulless. So
Thank you.
But have you talk about you actually believe in it and have done some thinking about it is pretty shocking in its own right, isn't it?
Well, again, mathematics, Leibniz thought.
So Newton was at Cambridge, and he was the head of the math department, right? He's a professor, essentially.
Yes.
But Leibniz, was Leibniz a German professor?
Yes, but what Leibniz said is the soul is so strange because God took chemicals, which is simply the material, like tables, and he somehow made this material able to have a thought. How strange is that? Not only does it have a soul, but some way it was put together that this material substance is able to think. So when you say to me, it's obvious to everyone that there's such a thing as a soul. Now, if you're part of the Charlatanville, you'll try to explain it to people. The soul I describe as the dark matter of the brain. Why is it dark matter? Because in high energy physics nowadays you hear terms of dark matter, dark energy. Again, terminology, it's a complicated term. Why is it dark matter? Because we can't see it, that's all. What do you mean you can't see it? Well, somehow we see something moving towards this area of darkness. I can see this thing. This appears to me to be empty. It's just black. But I see it being drawn this way. So I say, well, I know if this were matter, that would follow that equation. If this was solid, it would explain the way this particle moves. But I can't see anything here. So I'll just call it dark matter. And I'll say, I don't know what it is, but it behaves as if there was something there. The soul is obvious to everyone that there's something different between things that are alive and things that are not alive. But we have no idea what it is. It's currently unexplainable. I believe we need an entirely different system of analysis to try to figure out.
But
Sorry.
No. With Newton, with all his alchemical studies and things he worked on the spiritual side, Leibniz that just talked about the soul, Schroeder talked about what is life. If a modern scientist or someone that you funded at MIT or at Harvard or one of these things talked in those types of terms, they would be considered to be a wingnut today, wouldn't they? They would not be on the path for tenure, right?
unless they were in the philosophy department.
This is exactly my point. We're talking about three of the greatest mathematicians in mankind's history that have really changed mankind. Talking like this, what happened? How do we get to a situation where they could not be in the high physics, they could not be in the mathematics department or working in high energy physics?
Good, it's an easy answer. Newton was a combination of mathematician, or geometer then, and philosopher. And as time went on, those disciplines seemed to move apart. We had philosophy. Some of the philosophers can't do math, and some of the mathematicians. And again, mathematicians often break into two categories. People that solve problems. Those are more like geometers in the old days, just problem solvers. And then there's thinkers, theoreticians. They're more like the old movement towards philosophy. But neither one of those two groups have been able to figure out why something is alive as opposed to something that's not alive. No one's been able to describe what the soul is, but we all know it exists. And I think what we need is science is a bad word. I think science only describes the things we already know about the physical world. In fact, there's an argument that the physical world that we see has been created out of our systems of mathematics. Mathematics, everyone knows mathematics describes the physical world much greater than it should, unless my view, the physical world really comes out of conscious beings that have mathematics. So they create it. This table appears to you and I to be solid. To a bat, because we have light that's bouncing off the table into our eyes, it appears solid. If instead of eyes that responded to wavelengths of visual light, our eyes responded to radio waves, the radio frequencies, it's not different, it's the same type of frequency as light, but different speeds, the table's invisible. We know that our phone works in this room. So the waves are coming through the windows, the waves are coming through the walls. So the walls are invisible to that type of radiation, that type of energy. The walls I can see them because my eyes, a physical system, determines that the walls are there.
You, with Murray Geldman, you founded, or were the original donor, and had the idea of Santa Fe Institute. In 10 or 15 years later, that effort to study the complexity of systems mathematically.
Yes.
Was
it's a total failure. Yes.
A total failure.
Total failure.
Why is that?
It's the failure of science because, in fact, if to some extent science doesn't describe romance. I don't know why I'm attracted to somebody. I don't know. People are attracted to each other, and everyone has the same feeling. They've seen someone walk in the room, and they say, "Oh, that person gives me a creepy feeling." Science has tried to describe. Science doesn't describe what creepy feelings means. They just know it's a creepy feeling. I think women, as I said the last time, have an intuitive sense. What is intuitive? They have intuition, they have feelings, and they're able to deal in the realm of things that men, especially men like myself, find unexplainable. Women have intuition, men see things a bit differently. Men want to measure everything. Women are not really that interested in measuring.
In what you're saying in macro terms, you actually think science, mathematics, maybe ultimately technology is moving to that more intuitive?
I think science and math are old-fashioned. And unfortunately, people are still taught that they have to learn algebra in school and certain things in school, as opposed to learning to have an emotion.
Is this what Larry Summers was trying to get at? Maybe he didn't say it perfectly enough, but what he was trying to get to in that system, the systems we study today, the way mathematics is either taught or understood, that women just haven't gotten up to the highest realms of engineering or physics or mathematics because of that. And you're actually implying that there's a either new branch of science, or we've hit an inflection point like in Newton that's going to go in a Newton took mankind in a different direction because he was able to measure. Then you had subatomic, non-Newtonian physics later. Are you saying that you think there's another developing field that's coming up that may take us, I don't know how many decades to get our hands around, but that's what's evolving out of this?
Yes. Yeah. In fact, I think that mathematics, it's not the end of science. Every year someone says it's the end of, we can't discover everything. There's lots to discover with relationship to the physical world, but we know a lot already. In respect to the unexplainable world, we almost know nothing. Women, again, sense it. And instead of Larry Summers, I won't digress too much, but Howard Gardner early on said, there's not one form of intelligence. It's not mathematical intelligence. There's emotional intelligence, this kinesthetic intelligence. There's this argument that I reject that black people are less intelligent than white people. It's not true. We know, for example, that if I was in the forest and I had to run from the lion or figure out a way not to be eaten, and my competition is a local African, I'm the one who's getting eaten because they have the intelligence to deal with their local environment. So it's just different. It's not better, it's not worse, but there's many differences amongst different types of people. And so people have different intelligences and they excel in some intelligences usually and less so in others.
When did it come to, because the world of high finance is a world of pure reason, or is it a lot of emotion and gut checks and on trading desk and central banks when these decisions get made? Is it that high church, like the high church of science of high energy physics, or is it as much emotion that comes in as much as the mathematics and the reason?
It's a great question. I think if you talk to really experienced and successful traders and you ask them how they know what's going on, they can't give you an answer. They don't know. They feel it. They can feel the way the market's moving. They can feel the way the stock's moving. And that these are not very well-defined terms. It's difficult to put in mathematics terms, how did I feel it? You could look back and make guesses what I was seeing. But great traders feel it and then act on their feelings. That's the difference. Many people feel it but are afraid because they want a mathematical justification before they take that next step.
When you first got on the trading desk at Bear Stearns in the late 70s or mid 70s, were you shocked by how little actual understanding of mathematics that the traders comprehended?
Yeah, well, again, we had a Texas Instrument calculator. Most stockbrokers, especially before 1975, if they were good stockbrokers, could add. That's about it. They could multiply. If you could multiply, you were already in the top 15% of stockbrokers. Stockbrokers simply meant there's a story. When I went to the first person, I had no money. And I said, how much money do you make a year? And he said, $400,000. I said, impossible. I'm making $10,000.
That's probably more than your family had made in its entire existence.
Yes. And he makes it in a year. I said, what do you do? And he said, it's too complicated for you to understand. Which is what the main thrust of Wall Street people, they want to tell you it's too complicated. Because if you understood that person was simply, he had a brother-in-law, in fact, in this case, who ran the pension fund at General Motors. His brother-in-law would call him and say, buy 1,000 IBM. He'd hang up the phone, he'd write it out on a ticket and walk it to a window. That was his entire skill set. Hello, write what my brother-in-law says, walk it to a ticket window.
Give me an example when you were on the trading desk in the early days at Bear Stearns of a time that you felt either complete uncertainty or you saw total panic, where something was happening that people couldn't foretell and that they were like in an airplane cockpit where it's going wrong. Walk us through that.
In 1978, I think it was, across the news wires, there had been a collapse of the currency in Thailand. On the other side of the world, had no relationship to me. I wasn't sure where Thailand was. But the fact that a currency, a country's money, had all of a sudden dropped tremendously in value, affected the rest of the world's markets. And people panicked because they'd never seen that before. A very small part of a very complex system had a shock throughout the whole system. So prices on Park Avenue apartments, the bond markets, the stock markets, every started to gyrate. You know, there's an old mathematics expression that if a butterfly wings in Mexico make the wrong turn, it spins out, and eventually, by the time it gets to Canada, it turns into a tornado. So these are part of complex systems. So yeah, Wall Street in certain parts.
Santa Fe Institute was supposed to actually come up with a formula for that, for the butterfly wings. Why in 15 years did you reach the end of at least that experiment?
Every attempt to, that's why it's so exciting now, because I think certain people are starting to realize that there's so many things that are unexplainable that we have to think about them differently. Music is a great example. It's a common man's example. You know, when you hear a certain song, it makes you feel a certain way. How does it do that? We don't know. We can't mathematize it. And even that music, Steve, nowadays we compress music. When you have a violin, it's compressed onto your iPhone. So what does compression mean? I'm taking lots of information and I'm cutting it into lots of pieces and squishing it together. And when I squish it or compress it, I have to take out lots of pieces, but I say that they're not very important pieces. It's those pieces that we take out when we compress data, to me, are the most interesting parts of life.
You just said a while ago, part of this new search for science may go back to when people were actually talking about a soul, and you said there's no doubt in your mind that there is a soul. Describe for me what you mean by that. What do you mean by soul? What do you mean soul different than the physical analog body that we're seeing on film right now?
It's difficult to describe in words. I mean, I'm not a poet. Poems get a little closer to what that really means. But even the concept of what is life becomes complicated when you deal with plants and seeds. Is a seed alive? I don't know. Certain people would say, no, it's dead. When you're a banana, one of my favorite examples is the banana that's sitting on the countertop in your kitchen today. Is it alive or dead?
What do you think about human life? What is human? Tell me about human life.
But your banana is alive. That banana is breathing. It's on your. You say that's impossible, Jeffrey. No, it's not.
Is the banana conscious?
All these are words. So everyone's trying to fit a very complicated concepts into a very small box called conscious or alive. These don't fit in that way. So if you put your banana in a bag and put another fruit in with it, the fruit ripens faster because the banana breathes with it. We don't understand most of those things. So you asked the big question. Sorry.
You talk about the life. What about human life?
What about it?
Tell me what do you think? What do you think human life is?
It's a miracle. It's a miracle. And when I say miracle, I can't explain it, and I make no attempt to explain it at the moment. We don't know how to think about it. And anyone, and again, another one of the Feynman quotes when he was talking about quantum physics, he said, anyone, Jeffrey, who says they understand quantum physics and quantum mechanics and quantum behavior, you know they're lying.
Let's talk about it. That's post-Newtonian. Talk about what's the difference. Who founded quantum mechanics? Why is quantum mechanics taking Newtonian physics and taking it to the next level?
It forms a much broader category.
Let's go back to this desk. You used the thing of Newton using this desk. Why can't Newton's theory explain everything? Why did subatomic quantum mechanics or quantum physics have to come in to explain this?
Well, so let's go right back to square one. Why is it called quantum physics? So quanta is a word that simply means packet, small amount. So it's quantized. So when we recognize that this table appears, another very complicated word, solid to us, it's really made up of molecules or atoms. And atoms, we've given lots of names to what some of the behaviors. If you were in school, when you and I were in school in the 50s, the model was a little center thing in the middle, and an electron went around and around it. It was seen as a ball that went around and around it. And as we started to look at, say, well, let's see what this ball looks like. I want to be able to examine that little thing called an electron. We found that there was nothing there. There wasn't the thing. It was simply a cloud of energy that we can call an electron. So we already started to see mysterious things as we go into very super small quantities, quantum physics. So quantum physics started to go into the very small, and at very small distances, we see things that we can't explain. We just cannot explain.
How am I doing on time?
4 minutes.
Fine.
And to summarize, no, sorry.
Let's go back to human life. When do you think human life starts?
It's not these. So you see, this is the question. You're asking me to measure something again. It's the disease.
It can't be measured. You just hate making commitments.
That's why I'm not married.
I'm peeling this onion back a layer at a time. All your bullshit and happy target can't be measured like that. Is that to say measure it's a commitment. You don't even like a commitment when you answer a question.
I don't
As
know.
they say in golf, commit to the shot.
I don't know what it means to be measured.
You do know what it means to be measured. You're one of the leading currency traders, hedge fund guys, or stock market financial wizards. You're in the high priesthood of high finance. You certainly know how to measure. That's why you're a billionaire. Any other answer besides that is total and complete bullshit, and you know it.
I know very few things.
You know things can be measured. You measure every day. You weigh and measure every day. You weigh and measure people. You weigh and measure leaders. You weigh and measure economies. You weigh and measure politics.
It's a very good.
You weigh and measure. You weigh.
Hang on.
Your whole life, in fact, is measuring.
So what you've now done is a great thing, is you've used the word measure, a mathematic term, in the common vernacular and abused it. So I don't even recognize what it means. It's so abusive to my field.
Why? And let's go to that. In mathematics, measure means what specifically?
There's no specific. It's an approximation, or giving something a number. Einstein said.
We're not asking you to go to the ninth decimal point.
You didn't say that before.
No, you're not going to the ninth.
I don't even. What if I say measure how tall are you? You'd say in your case 6 foot.
6 feet.
But is it 6 foot 1 inch?
Give or take, it's between 5'11" and 6 feet.
But what's that? But I want. So the question is, I want an accurate.
I got Zeno's paradox.
I don't even know what it means
Right.
to measure you. Am I measuring the top of your hair, the top of your skull, the finer, the more.
You're being rabbinical. This is like.
I shaved my beard off. I used to be rabbinical.
No, my point is, isn't that going through the Torah where you're parsing every definition?
No, so,
however we broadly define measure, your life literally is about measurement, is it not?
It's about putting numbers on things so that I can try my best. You can call it whatever you like. If that makes you feel better.
What do you know?
No, I want to make you happy.
Back to your scientific inquiry.
No, even a number. People don't. A number is a complicated
When
thing.
did you come to this When did you come to this aha moment? Was when it was in your solitary confinement, when the biggest financial crisis in world history was going on, in your 7x9 jail cell with your metal bed and your two brushes because you were a trustee with the brown uniform on, trustee spelled wrong. Is that the moment of clarity that you had about science and Newtonian physics and everything that we can measure is really not going to be the way we go forward? It's going to be much more esoteric, emotional intelligence thing. Was that your moment of clarity?
I wish it was, because it would make such a great story for this interview, but it's not. It's the fact that I lead such a privileged life to come across.
But when did you? If it didn't happen then, when did it? Or did it happen before?
I was going to hopefully get to the.
Okay.
I'm in a privileged position to have some of the world's smartest people come to my house and tell me what they think about different subjects, And I finally realized that the thing that they had most in common was there was this area, no matter how smart they were, that when I asked them the questions, they said they'd have to resort to a 500 or 1,000-year-old response to that question, which was, I don't know.
You know who else found that out?
In
Socrates. That's what Socrates kept doing, right? Socrates kept asking all the experts. He would go through, question after question after question, and realize at the end they didn't really know. They really didn't basically understand what they were talking about.
And one of the things that people won't enjoy, it turns out that potentially one of the bad things to teach children is how to write. Writing, reading, and arithmetic was supposed to be, everyone's supposed to be taught. But writing forces you into a very narrow channel of thinking. You have to write in a certain form, in a certain way, in a certain linear pattern. So your thinking becomes somewhat narrow. The reason I brought up writing is one of the recent discoveries of mine with respect to Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle is they never wrote anything. They spoke, and people around who could write wrote. Socrates could think. So that was...
Jesus of Nazareth was the same way, right? Never wrote anything.
I thought he was a carpenter.
He was a carpenter.
Didn't he need like a little carpenter's tool? I don't want to get that.
But at least his written record.
Right.
One last thing.
Sure. Thank you for having me to your house. Vegetable juice.
Let's go back.
Look what vegetable juice does.
When did that, the beginning of that, was there any one aha moment in all these great thinkers? Did it happen before 2008? Was it after? That came up over, I know, many years, but when did you actually realize, hey, something new's got to be developed?
Yeah, that's great. Is that because again, I'm privileged enough to have people around me who've given lots of philanthropic gifts to institutions of higher learning, and when I said the impact, how do you judge the impact of your giving? And we sat down and said, no really new ideas have come out. And I realized that, of course, it hasn't come out because we've been looking at using science and mathematics, and it's the wrong tool. It's obvious.
Institutions that are set up and try to put forward knowledge and understanding and truth, should they take your money?
Derek Bach at Harvard said, taking money for good causes is a good thing.
So if Hitler took all the gold out of the teeth of the Jews and said, I want to give this to Heidelberg University to fund the Leibniz chairs so that I can study high energy physics, Derek Bach would say that was fine?
Again, these questions are questions where good people on both sides, like your Charlottesville, could differ. I don't know the answer to these questions.
So tell us the two. Give us the two answers. The one answer why it shouldn't be, and then the one answer. Derek Bach says, I'll essentially take cash from anybody because I got so many projects, so many good guys, and this is the way I'll do it. So I'm indifferent to where the cash comes from. Money's money, and if I got good guys, I'm the fiduciary. Says these are good people and this is good research. Okay, I'll take the cash from any source, including you. What's the other argument?
Let me give you that. I know in my case,
Is your money dirty money?
If you live,
I just asked a question. Is your money dirty money?
No, it's not. So, in fact,
why is it not dirty money?
Because I earned it,
But you earned it.
I earned it legally.
We went back to this before. You earned
Yes.
it. You earned it, advising the worst people in the world, right? That do enormous bad things. And just to make more money.
So, instead of asking me the question, should you take the money? Because I think it's a legitimate question.
You think it's a legitimate question?
Yes, no
Why?
question. Because I think ethics is always a complicated subject. But I can tell you that with the money I gave to help try to eradicate polio in Pakistan and India, instead of asking me whether that money should be given to these children for vaccines, I think you might want to ask their mothers who received the vaccine, who know their child now won't get polio, and ask them if Epstein should have helped these people
If we
with their
walked in,
money.
if we walked
That's
in,
what-
you're
is
a
that a fair
mathematician.
question?
You're a mathematician. If we walked into that clinic where they're giving that money out to these people that are in the most dire straits of poverty and sickness, and told them that the money was coming from a, what are you, class 3 sexual predator?
Tier 1.
Was tier 1's the highest and worst?
No, I'm
The lowest?
I'm the lowest.
You're the
yes.
lowest. Okay, tier 1, you're the lowest. But a criminal.
Yes.
That the money came from them. What percentage of people do you estimate? I understand you don't like probabilities. Do you estimate would say, I don't care, I want the money for my children?
I would say everyone said, I want the money for my children.
Did they know where the money came from?
I think if you
See,
told them, if I told them the devil,
100%.
the devil
Himself.
the devil himself said, I'm going to exchange some dollars
Do
for
you- do you-
your child's life.
Do you think you're the devil himself?
No, but I do have a good mirror.
It's a serious question.
Oh, sorry.
Do you think you're the devil himself?
I don't know. Why would you say that?
Because you have all the attributes. You're incredibly smart. You remember the devil is
the
somebody
devil
knows
smart?
The devil's brilliant. You read Milton's Paradise Lost.
No, the devil scares me.
Satan is at the number 1 or 2 archangel, and the reason he goes to hell and leads the rebellion is because he can't be the top guy. And his thing is, I'd rather reign in hell than serve in heaven.
I saw that in a movie once called American Dharma. I don't remember who said it. Okay, we have to go.
Okay, good.
Okay.
That was good.